गुड आफ्टरनून एवरीवन. अभी ज्योग्राफी की क्लास है. सी देर इज़ अ जनरल रूल कि मंडे ट्यूसडे वेनसडे अनलेस जयेश को कुछ हो नहीं जाता, जैसे आज हुआ है, तो अनलेस जयेश को कुछ होता नहीं है तो जनरली मंडे ट्यूसडे वेनसडे इज हिस्ट्री, थर्सडे फ्राइडे सैटरडे विल बी ज्योग्राफी. सो 3 days दिस थिंग. सो अनफॉर्चुनेटली जयेश इज़ नॉट वेल, इसलिए आपका थर्सडे को भी नहीं हुआ एंड आज भी नहीं है. Yes. So I guess I have to start from the last lecture, that is we did the forces that are acting on the landform. There are two kinds of forces, that is the endogenetic forces and the exogenetic forces. Now endogenetic forces, they operate from within the earth. Why do they operate from within the earth? Force hai usme. What is happening? No, it's solid, but it is hollow. So because it is POP, it is not a wall. So there are two kinds of forces. One is endogenetic forces, which will generate from inside the earth due to the heat that is formed inside the earth, generally due to the convectional currents. Now these endogenetic forces which are generated from inside the earth, they will keep on moving the continents or the plates. We have seen this, and because they move the plates, they may collide or they go away from each other. And as a result of this, these plates may either get folded to form fold mountains, they may either get cracked, and when they get cracked on the smaller scale, they will form block mountains. If they get cracked on the larger scale and they go below the water, they may form the submergent landform. On the other hand, if they come above the water surface, they may form an emergent landform. So we said that these forces are known as constructive forces. Why constructive forces? Not because they form any kind of the landform, but because they help in increasing the height of a landform. So don't confuse, that was a confusion in the last lecture. Some students came after the lecture and said, even the river is bringing large amount of sediments and depositing it. So why do we say the exogenetic forces are destructive forces? Uska reason hai because the river is breaking the sediments in Himalayas and then bringing and depositing it here. So there are two kinds of forces, that is the endogenetic forces which will help in constructing a landform, and we have done the endogenetic forces as two kinds, diastrophic forces and the catastrophic forces. The diastrophic forces on the area jitna they operate, they are further divided into two types. One is epirogenetic forces. Epiro means continent, genetic means origin, that is the continent building forces, and the other is the orogenetic forces. Oro matlab mountain building force. अब एपिरोजेनेटिक फोर्स इज ऑफ टू टाइप्स, सबमर्जेंस एंड इमर्जेंस ऑफ एन लैंडफॉर्म. इसमें हमने एग्जांपल भी दिया है, दैट इज विच कोस्ट इज एन एग्जांपल ऑफ एन सबमर्ज कोस्ट. The western coast of India is an example of an submerged coast, while the eastern coast of India is an emerged coastline. While there are some of the forces which are orogenetic forces, and usme there is continent, there is folding resulting into fold mountains, or can I say they are the highest mountains in the world, youngest fold mountains. So we will see over the period of time that they are known as the mountains of elevation. Elevation means the mountains of height. And the other kind of mountains are volcanic mountains. So can I say volcanic mountains are formed due to accumulation of layers and layers of lava? So they are known as the mountains of accumulation. तीसरा kind of mountain है जो हम exogenetic में करेंगे, Aravali, that is they are known as the mountains of denudation. Denudation matlab they have been reduced in height. So we will call them as relict mountains. So these are the two kinds of the forces. Orogenetic में we will be studying folding and faulting in detail. And तीसरा, the catastrophic forces are earthquakes and volcanoes. So earthquakes I told you also in the last lecture, क्या इसमें से मेंस के लिए पढ़ना है, क्या प्रीलिम्स के लिए पढ़ना है. Over the period of time, then the external forces will start operating. We'll see later on in the coming lectures that land also behaves like us. That is, we also pass through the three stages: youthful stage, mature stage, and the old age. So the landform also goes through the three stages: youth, mature, and old age. Old age mein the height of the landform is reduced. In the youthful stage, they are having greater height, and because there is a greater height, energy is very high in the landform. Same applies to the human beings also. That is very high energy, youthful stage. Low energy, that is the mature stage bhi ho sakta hai, and very, very low energy is the old age. Similarly, the landform passes through the three different stages. And this three different stages means, can I say ye kuch nahi hai, but it is based on the height of a landform. So the iska reduction of the height is done by two processes. One is weathering, the other is erosion. Combinedly, they are known as the forces of denudation. They are known as the forces of denudation. That is lowering of the height. Yaad aa raha hai? Now, what is the difference between weathering and erosion? If the broken rock material remains at the same place, what we call as an in situ, without transportation, then it is known as an what? Weathering. But if there is a transportation involved, that is the rock material is broken, this is an rock, now it is remaining in the same place, but instead of remaining in the same place, it is transported. Why transportation? Because agents are involved. Kya hai agent? River hai, glaciers hai, winds are there. So we say, and usme deposition is involved. So we say this is an ex situ process. And isme we get, because river will be acting differently, water hai, uska property is different. It will dissolve a landform. It may give different shapes to the landform because the water is flexible. So we may get yahan pe V-shaped valleys. On other hand, glacier is not flexible, so we get U-shaped valleys. Deserts mein valleys hi nahi hai. Deserts mein the wind is the agent of erosion, and because the wind is the agent of erosion, wind operates only on the lower height. And because it operates only on the lower height, wind does not have any specific direction, and as a result of this, it will erode only the lower part of the rocks. As it erodes the lower parts of the rocks may get converted to somewhat like this, and we'll call them as a mushroom rock. So this three different types, means this different types of landforms are only for prelims, thankfully, and they are what are known as the landforms of erosion. So jaise maine kaha tha, once we do this chart, our geomorphology will be completed. So how many of you, I am seeing some new faces here. Have you watched the earlier lectures of geography? Go home and watch these lectures, because ये highly interrelated subject है. You will not understand many things if you don't do this. जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी फिर भी अलग है. क्लाइमेटोलॉजी में एक दिन एब्सेंट मतलब पूरा क्लाइमेटोलॉजी गायब. याद रखना, क्लाइमेटोलॉजी में ट्राई टू बी रेगुलर टू द क्लास. इवन अ सिंगल डे इफ यू मिस्ड समथिंग, अगर आपका अटेंशन नहीं रहा क्लाइमेटोलॉजी में, द एंटायर क्लाइमेटोलॉजी इज गॉन. एंटायर क्लाइमेटोलॉजी इज गॉन मतलब एंटायर एनवायरमेंट एंड इकोलॉजी इज गॉन. एनवायरमेंट इकोलॉजी इज गॉन मतलब प्रीलिम्स इज गॉन. याद रखना, 16 से 17 क्वेश्चंस प्रीलिम्स में आएंगे हर साल, including this year from the environment and ecology. So you have to be very, very careful in this part, because this is an highly interrelated subject. चाहे आपका हिस्ट्री का लेक्चर्स हो, फिर भी ज्योग्राफी करके आना, बिकॉज वहाँ पे मराठा ख़त्म तो ख़त्म, फिर आएंगे ब्रिटिशर्स, मुगल्स तो मुगल्स ख़त्म, उनका कोई ज़्यादा ये नहीं है, बट दिस इज़ इंटर रिलेटेड. सो whenever there is a next class of geography, you go through the recorded lectures. Now, why, if I am saying, just I am asking you a generalized example, if this is an rock or this is a mountain and some part of it is made up of limestone, some part of it is made up of iron, is the most common mineral here. Some part of it is made up of marble, or forget iron, some part of it is made up of granite. Now, if this is in single mountain and if the rainfall is occurring in this region, कौन सा part of a mountain will be eroded much faster या weathered much faster? Limestone. Limestone will be reduced in height as compared to the, why? Because the agent is different. Getting it? But in dry desert conditions, in the dry conditions, limestone may also be a very, very strong rock. In the dry conditions, if the wind is blowing, suppose there are three factors up. Rainfall is there, wind is there, and glacier is there. If these three are acting on this in this landform, कौन सा will be the most effective and कौन सा will be the least effective in eroding a landform? Glacier will be the most effective and the least effective will be winds. Winds will be the least effective. So it again will depend upon what is the kind of an rock. But if the wind is acting for sufficiently longer time, even if it is not that stronger agent, can it reduce the height of a landform? Yes. Remember, if you keep on scratching this wall and if your strength है fingers में, nails में, तो एक दिन आप successful हो जाओगे एक छेद बनाने में on the next time. So why? But उसके लिए what should be there? The tools you are having, it should be sharpened enough and it should be able to stay for a longer time. That means, can I say any landform, whether it is endogenetic or exogenetic landform, is an outcome of structure? क्या है ये? Whether limestone का rock है, whether granite का rock है, whether any, what is the structure of a rock? Process, what process is operating on them, and time. This can be your mains का short note. That is, the landform is an outcome of structure, process and time. And this answer you will be able to write once we complete geomorphology, because you will require numerous examples for this. But ये question हो सकता है, that is, you take down landform, the landform is an outcome of, landform is an outcome of structure, process and time. Landform is an outcome of structure, comma, process and time. By structure we mean by structure we mean, can I say minerals that are present in the rocks? So minerals that are present in the rocks, this can be your prelims ka question. What comes under the structure? By the minerals present in the rock, comma, folding, faulting, comma, whether the rock is jointed rock or a compact rock, whether the rock is a jointed rock or a compact rock, whether the rock is a jointed rock or a compact rock. That means whether the rocks have joints or whether it does not have a joint, it is just a compact rock. Why? Because joints are nothing but zones of weakness, जहाँ से water can easily pass through, and once the water passes through, it can easily erode the rocks. So this is an importance of a structure, that it determines the intensity of erosion or weathering. By process we mean which is the most dominant geomorphic agent, operating on a landform. एग्जाम्पल ग्लेशियर्स और विंड और रिवर्स, ये सारा क्या है, दिस ऑल इज द प्रोसेस, ग्लेशियर्स और विंड्स और रिवर्स, ऑल इज द प्रोसेस. Third, by time it means whether the landform is in the youthful stage, comma mature stage or old age, old age. यूथफुल स्टेज मतलब क्या होगा, हाइट विल बी ग्रेटर और लेसर, ग्रेटर. मैच्योर स्टेज मतलब लेसर, एंड द ओल्ड एज मतलब स्टिल नियरर टू द सी लेवल. कैन यू अप्लाई दिस टू इंडिया? हिमालयाज यूथफुल स्टेज. मैच्योर स्टेज स्टार्ट फ्रॉम विच पार्ट? इन द हिमालयाज के बाद मैच्योर स्टेज स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम हरिद्वार. That is when the river Ganga enters the Great Plains. And old age one is Aravallis, but if I say about the Great Ganga River ka hi, youthful Ganga River in the Himalaya region, mature Ganga River in Uttarakhand ka lower part and UP, while old age of a Ganga River in Bihar and West Bengal. इसीलिए हमको ये सब लगेगा while writing an answer why the west flowing rivers do not make delta, or why the Himalayan rivers make delta, and why the peninsular rivers do not make delta. क्योंकि peninsular rivers में there is nothing known as youthful stage. and जितना ज़्यादा speed है agent of an erosion का, उतना greater is the erosion capacity. If the river is flowing with a great speed, उतना greater will be the erosion capacity. If the river का speed is lesser, उसका erosion capacity is less. कहीं पे ये books में पढ़ने की ज़रूरत नहीं. You can see even in your everyday life, when there is a flood and when there is increase in the speed of a river, everything is taken away. Whether it is car, whether it is human beings, whether it is houses, also they are taken away. So remember, youthful stage में greater is the erosion capacity, and the old age में कोई erosion capacity नहीं होता. Next, the landform is an outcome of both endogenetic and exogenetic forces. The landform is an outcome of both endogenetic and exogenetic forces. Endogenetic and exogenetic forces. They operate simultaneously. And thus determine the height of a landform. Thus determine the height of a landform. Next point, endogenetic forces are known as constructive forces. Endogenetic forces are known as constructive forces because they increase the relief feature. Because they increase the relief or height of a landform. Height of a landform, relief or height of a landform. Exogenetic forces. In the bracket, weathering and erosion. reduce the height of a landform, reduce the height of a landform, and hence are known as destructive forces. Hence are known as destructive forces. Destructive forces. I guess we have already written for prelims, Epiro matlab continent building. Now let us look at the orogenetic forces. Oro means mountain and genetic means origin. There are two types. सबसे पहले folding. So we'll start with the folding. Orogenetic forces are the forces that are due to the folding, which causes the folding. Now, I'll take an example of this book. Suppose this is a landform. I am putting a force from here, and as a result of this, the landform is being wrapped. Or can I say folded? The greater the intensity of the force is, the greater will be the height of the landform. Which force is this? Compressional force or tensional force? Compressional force. Why compression? Tension always acts in opposite direction. Compression in the same direction. So whenever the compressional force is applied, the landform, if it is wrapped, it will give rise to the folding. Now when we say folding, now suppose if this is an original landform, due to folding, the landform will be upwrapped, और अगर ज़्यादा है intensity, the landform will also be downwrapped. ऐसे हो जाएगा because I am now pushing the landform. Now when such thing happens, we call this as a mountain, but in geography this is known as anticline. We will call this as a valley, but in geography this is known as an syncline. So what does the folding results into? Folding results into wrapping. Wrapping में the upfolded part जो ऊपर की तरफ है, it is known as an anticline. Generally mountains are anticlinal mountains, and जो downfolded part है, that is known as an syncline. So आगे जाके हम word use करेंगे synclinal valley. So you should understand synclinal valley means it is nothing but an valley that is in downfolded part. In reality, how do we see? We see somewhat like this. ये पूरा structure is folded, and then we make roads on the mountain, crack the mountains, and उसके बाद ये पूरा mountain comes down. That is what is known as an landslide, and something then goes into the valley. That is whether it is birds, whether it is human beings, they will fall into the valley. So folding, remember, is due to the compressional forces. It results into the formation of anticline and syncline. Folding में, is there breaking of a landform, या is there just a wrapping of a landform? Wrapping. Remember, landform टूट नहीं रहा है over the period of time. अगर बहुत ज़्यादा मैंने ये किया, तो the landform में break. कहाँ से it will break? It will break from this center point. Why? Because यहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा force is there. Though I am applying the force here, effect कहाँ पे दिख रहा है? Effect is here. Now, if this is too much, it will result into what is this? Anticline and syncline. So I didn't bring the atlas. So it will result into the formation of an anticline and syncline. जब कोई भी landform break हो जाएगा, you will call that as faulting. जब break नहीं होता है, what is that? That is an folding. So take down folding. नहीं. Faulting, tensional. I will come to the faulting. Yes. Give me a proper page. It's otherwise, जो उनका हार्ट बीट बढ़ जाएगा. So folding, if the more force is applied, there will be more folding. So what is this? Anticline and syncline. Getting it? So it is very very obvious कि folding में there will be anticline and syncline because forces continuously are being applied. अभी हमें real life में कहाँ दिखता है? Himalayas anticline, Great Himalayas syncline, फिर Middle Himalayas, फिर Shivaliks. What is this? This is syncline. What is this? This is an anticline. Because and forces are still being applied. So यहाँ पे भी over the period of time there will be anticline and syncline. Mountains में ज़रूरी नहीं हर mountains में there will be anticline and syncline, but fold mountains में हमेशा there will be anticline and syncline. Block mountains में there will not be an anticline and syncline. Those who are new, go home and do all these things because we have already finished, I guess, 7 to 8 lectures of geography. So this is the, remember, अभी सिर्फ लिख लो, घर पे जाके look quickly at the lectures and then be prepared for the next classes also. So you take down folding. It occurs when the landform is upwrapped. The landform is upwrapped. Due to the intensive compressive forces, due to the intensive compressive forces or intense compressive forces, due to the intense compressive forces that operate from within the earth. Intense compressive forces that operate from within the earth. Can I say ये कुछ नहीं कह रहा है? This is nothing but a destructive plate boundary या convergent plate boundary. वहीं पे तो होगा folding because both the forces are acting in the same direction. On other hand, faulting कहाँ पे होगा? Divergent plate boundary because tensional force है. Compression is in the same direction. Next, folding occurs in relatively more elastic rocks. Folding occurs in relatively more elastic rocks. As even after the compressive forces, they are not broken. Folding results into the formation of anticline, and you can write this word in the bracket, anticlinal mountains and syncline. Synclinal valleys, anticline and syncline. Now Now sometimes if this is one single anticline and if this is one single syncline, we'll see the photos, rocks properly dikhte hain aise, that they have gone through the folding. Now if this is an anticline and this is a syncline, sometimes what we see is on a single anticline there are series of anticline and syncline, anticline and syncline, anticline and syncline here. That is, जब भी आप trekking पे जाओगे mountains पे, you will see there is up and down. So this kind of an process in which on a single anticline there are more than one anticline and syncline, it is known as anticlinorium. So anticlinorium, on one anticline, on one large anticline, on one large anticline, if there are more than one anticline and synclines, if there are several anticline and syncline, if there are several anticline and syncline, it is known as anticlinorium. It is known as anticlinorium. Importance is only for prelims. ये मेंस में लिखने का चांस नहीं है, बिकॉज ये स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चन कभी नहीं आएगा. तो सिंक्लोनियम क्या होगा? ऑन अ सिंगल syncline there will be more than one anticline and syncline, and we will call this as क्या है ये? सिंगुलर वर्सेस प्लूरल फॉर्म, नथिंग एल्स. Anticline, anticlinorium. Syncline, synclinorium. So you take down. On the other hand, if on a single syncline, there is more than one anticline and syncline, it is known as synclinorium. It is known as synclinorium. What is the difference between the diagram 1 and diagram 2? अगर ये सेंट्रल पॉइंट है और अगर ये दो पैर है ऑफ अ फोल्ड, so what is the difference between diagram 1 and diagram 2? Can I say they are more or less similarly inclined in diagram 1 and यहाँ पे they are not similarly inclined? So the types of the fold only for prelims, that too if they asked, वैसे तो ये इससे क्वेश्चन नहीं आता, but still because it is given in the books we will be doing it. That is the types of the folds. The topic is types of the folds. So if can I say if the two limbs of the fold are inclined more or less similar to each other, then this kind of an fold is known as an symmetrical fold. On other hand, if both the limbs are not properly inclined, we will call this as asymmetrical fold. That is, if this is our landform and if both the limbs are similarly inclined, it will become symmetrical fold. If it is not similarly inclined, it will become asymmetrical. Q hoga symmetrical fold. If both the forces are in the same, of the same intensity, of the same duration, then symmetrical fold. अगर एक भी force थोड़ा ज़्यादा है तो asymmetrical fold. Now force मतलब plates. Now you tell me, will Indian plate ask the Eurasian plate कि how much force you are putting, उतना ही force मैं डाल रहा हूँ? No, this will never happen. So in real life, कौन सा folds are not found? Symmetrical fold are not found in the real life. Why? Because American plate will not be putting as much pressure as the Pacific plate only. ये सिर्फ computers में possible है, calculation से. In real life, what we see is the asymmetrical fold. And this is what we have seen in the plate tectonics, that is the southern side of the Himalayas is much steeper than the northern side of the Himalayas. That is what is known as an asymmetrical fold. Why? Because the Indian plate is pushing the Eurasian plate, and therefore the push is more from the southern side of the Himalayas, and hence we have asymmetrical fold in the Himalayan region. Fine with this? So symmetrical fold, you can take down the definition. If both the limbs of the fold, if both the limbs of the fold are inclined equally or at equal angles, it is known as symmetrical fold. It is known as a symmetrical fold. On the other hand, if the one limb is inclined, at a steeper angle, or if both the limbs are inclined at different angles, then it is known as asymmetrical fold. Then it is known as an asymmetrical fold. So remember that in real life we have mostly asymmetrical folds. Now consider this. This is an imaginary landform. We are folding it. Indian plate is putting more pressure, and therefore we can say one limb of a fold is more inclined as compared to the other limb. Suppose now the hypothetical situation is कि अब Eurasian plate ने भी pressure डाला and Indian plate stationary है. So now can I say both the limb are inclined at a steeper angle? So यहाँ पे both the limb are inclined at a steeper angle. यहाँ in the earlier case only one limb was inclined at a steeper angle. One means mono. So the third kind of an fold, it's very easy to remember, is the monoclinal fold. Mono means one. So if the one limb is steep while the other limb is gentle, हम कहेंगे it is an monoclinal. इसके बाद आएगा if both the limbs are steep, isoclinal. Iso means two. So first monoclinal fold. Now you tell me, Himalayas are, question ऐसे आता है एग्जाम में, ये definition नहीं पूछेंगे, they will ask you applied part. Himalayas are an example of symmetrical, asymmetrical. monoclinal, isoclinal. They are an example of monoclinal. That is, ये जितने भी अभी हम folds करेंगे, monoclinal, isoclinal, recumbent, they all are the subtypes of asymmetrical folds. Fine with this? Monoclinal fold. मोनो यही डायग्राम्स है. अच्छा, मैं बनाता हूँ. मोनो की तो डायग्राम सेम है. इज द सेम डायग्राम फॉर मोनो ऑल्सो. आइसो की आई विल मेक. Monoclinal, if one limb is steeply inclined, if one limb of a fold is steeply inclined, if one limb of a fold is steeply inclined, while the other is gentle, while the other limb is gentle, it is known as monoclinal fold. Example, Himalayan mountain range. सिर्फ हिमालयाज मत लिखना, पूरा रेंज, हिमालयन माउंटेन रेंज. Because mountain range means all the three Himalayas, great, middle and the Shivaliks. Himalayas matlab it can be any of the Himalayas. Isoclinal, if the compressive forces from both the sides, if the compressive forces from both the sides are strong, both the limbs become steep and more or less parallel to each other. Become steep and more or less parallel to each other. Such kind of folds are known as isoclinal folds. Such kind of folds are known as isoclinal folds. Such kind of folds are known as isoclinal folds. Again, look here, hypothetical situation. पहले symmetrical. अब Indian plate decides that it will put more pressure, so asymmetrical, but now monoclinal. अब the European plate also is putting the pressure, so isoclinal. अब अगर फिर से Indian plate ने pressure डाला, तो this limbs will become parallel to each other and also parallel to the ground surface. उसके बाद mountain फिर से ऐसे fold होते जाएगा. And over the period of time, we will have a very very thin mountain range. Thin mountain range मतलब कोई भी fold mountains देखना in the world, they are not great in width, they are just great in length. What has happened to them? ऐसा ही था crust. Folding से it has got reduced over the period of time. And then when the folding stopped, या उससे आगे अगर folding नहीं हो पा रहा है, then they will start becoming greater in the height. So the next kind of unfold is the recumbent fold. Recumbent fold. Try writing down, try making the diagrams. लिखो, try writing down नहीं, लिखो, क्योंकि एग्जाम लिख के पास करनी है आपको. तो सिर्फ सुन के मत समझो, बिकॉज आफ्टर 6 months कुछ नहीं रहेगा, सिर्फ याद रहेंगे तो हाथ से लिखे हुए नोट्स. ट्राई डूइंग दिस. प्रिंटेड नोट्स पढ़ के देखना और अपने हाथ से वही नोट्स पढ़ के देखना. योर memory is stronger when you write with your own hands. Remember, this is in psychology known as levels of processing approach. Greater is the level of processing, the information goes in your long-term memory. Level of processing is lesser, the information is stored in your short-term memory. Short-term memory की time span होता है 21 minutes. So you read something while coming in a metro, e-book reader पे यहाँ पे आने तक गायब. Short-term memory best is seen in your Viva days. बाहर आते ही पूछते हो कौन सा क्वेश्चन पूछा है. They tell you XYZ the teacher is asking, you revise it और अंदर जाते हो फिर से. That is what is short term memory. So short term memory के ऊपर how to do it. This is a scientific study. The more the levels of processing, the better is the remembrance. So level of processing कैसे? सुनना is one level, writing down is another. When you revise it, underlining is the third. After revision, jotting down that is the fourth level of processing. So jitna greater is the level of processing, utna that information goes in your long term memory. So writing practice karo. I guess this is your first subjective test. So you will realize what I am saying after 1 hour. So, recumbent fold. What is happening in the recumbent fold? In this, the compressive forces are so strong that both the limbs become parallel to each other, but they also become parallel to the ground surface. That means this is how the limbs will become. So you can take down recumbent fold. Such kind of folding is seen in the regions of complex fold mountains such as Himalayas, in the regions of complex fold mountains such as Himalayas, full stop. In the recumbent fold, both the limbs become parallel to each other, as well as they are parallel to the ground surface. Parallel to each other as well as they are parallel to the ground surface. Which? Himalayas, entirely Himalayas. Yes. Recumbent fold. You continue writing, you will understand what is found in the Himalayas. Recumbent fold.
Sir, I want to ask, like, monoclinal fold is Himalayas, recumbent fold is Himalayas.
This is your first lecture, right? So you will have to go home, revise the lecture, and then you will have to ask the doubts. Monoclinal fold, entire Himalayan range. Recumbent fold matlab kya? You will have to see, go home, do the definition properly, understand it with the help of plate tectonics, because we have finished the plate tectonics, and then you will have to come to this. Fine? If you don't understand after that, then you can come and ask me. Because सिर्फ आगे और एक लाइन लिखो. Recumbent fold ultimately results into overturned or overthrust fold and nappy. Nappy is the favorite of UPSC. And nappy. overturned or overthrust fold. And nappe. Overturned and overthrust fold and nappe. We'll define this. Now understand, when we say Himalayan mountain range, matlab the entire Himalayas is an example of what? Monoclinal. But Himalayas has numerous small mountains. Mountain range, and usme there are numerous mountains. Trishul, Everest, शिवालिक का कुछ पार्ट, धौलाधार रेंज, पीर पंजाल रेंज, वी हैव सीन दिस. अब उसमें से किसी माउंटेन्स में हमें नापे दिखेंगे, किसी माउंटेन्स में हमें ओवर टर्न्ड फोल्ड दिखेगा और किसी माउंटेन्स में हमें रिकम्बेंट फोल्ड दिखेंगे. पर पूरा रेंज की अगर बात की तो इट इज एन एग्जांपल ऑफ एन मोनोक्लिनल. बट इफ यू लुक एट द इंडिविजुअल माउंटेन्स की रॉक्स कैसे है, उसमें यू विल find some of the rocks are recumbent, that is the folding is such that we will see in the cross sectional photos in the next lecture. Aaj nahi, that this ऐसे दिखता है that the folding has occurred and it is lying parallel to the ground surface, but सबसे common है in the Himalayas nappe. अब Himalayas मतलब in the single mountain of an Himalayas you will find nappe. What is nappe? First we will understand what is an overthrust or overturned fold. Now, what is the overthrust or overturned fold? अब suppose this is how the fold has become. Initially this was the fold. Now it has become monoclinal. अब फिर से pressure से it has become isoclinal. Then if there is an pressure it has become overthrust. अब if there is more pressure, will the fold break? There is chances that the fold can break because हर part में the rocks are different. Remember the crust वाला lecture. जरूरी नहीं कि because this entire fold का dimension can be more than 500 kilometers. So जरूरी नहीं that each and every part is made up of the same rocks. Now suppose if it is made up of less elastic rock, such as marble, which cannot be folded, such as granite, which cannot be folded. Limestone is more or less elastic. Limestone मतलब चूना. You can give it an, or clay is more or less elastic. But these are some of the rocks which are not elastic, and uske baad bhi, if there is a more and more pressure being applied, can I say the fold will break? And if the fold will break, सबसे ज़्यादा chances कहाँ पे है fold break होने का? At this central point. Why? Because the pressure is more. Example, scale लो, scale को दोनों side से bend करो. Now कहाँ तक bend हो सकती है scale? जहाँ तक उसकी इलास्टिसिटी लिमिट है. वंस उसका इलास्टिसिटी लिमिट इज लॉस्ट, इट ब्रेक्स फ्रॉम द सेंटर पॉइंट. सो सच काइंड ऑफ एन फोल्ड, दैट इज व्हाट आई टोल्ड यू इन द फर्स्ट लेक्चर. सब आपको रिलेटिवली सोचना है. दैट इज द हाउ मच स्ट्रेंथ यू आर हैविंग वर्सेस हाउ मच स्ट्रेंथ द एंडोजेनेटिक फोर्सेस they are having. So for a small kid, they cannot even bend the scale. Why? Because the force being applied is less. But when you grow up, as the strength increases, you can bend the scale. But if you suppose if you become now 90 plus, फिर से you cannot bend the scale. So it is all the relative that how much force you can apply, that will determine the elasticity nature of the rocks. So in some cases, the rocks are broken at this point. So the point where the rocks are broken, now suppose this is one part where the rock is broken, and this is the second part where the rock is broken. Now, when the rock is broken, it is known as an overthrust fold. And after breaking, we have seen, but we do not know the reasons, that these two limbs are then displaced for several kilometers. Why? Because यहाँ से one force is acting and नीचे से the other force is acting. So the two limbs which were there, they are found several kilometers apart. Such broken limbs which are found several kilometers apart are termed as nappe. Example in India, कैसे nappes देखने हैं. Over the period of time, This all are covered by sediments. उसके ऊपर cities come up or villages come up. Now in some village नीचे है रेड कलर की सॉइल सब जगह, बट एक ऐसी जगह होती है जहाँ पे आप थोड़ा भी नीचे जाओगे तो सॉइल नहीं, डायरेक्टली रॉक मिलेगा. You must have seen this. That is an example of a nappe. The best nappes in India are हिमालयाज में मंदिर के लोकेशंस, क्योंकि एग्जाम्पल है स्टोरीज दैट आसपास सारी रेड कलर की सॉइल है, बीच में ही उसी जगह ब्लैक सॉइल है, सो मंदिर. फिर माइथोलॉजी, परशुराम ने यहाँ बाण चलाया था, या राम जी ने बाण चलाया था, या भीम ने गदा रखी थी, एंड उसके कारण द सॉइल का कलर बदल गया. So over the period of time, but you should remember geographically what are they? Nappe. Why they are nappe? Because they belong to a different location and therefore the characteristics are totally different. Now if you go to Konkan, Western Ghats में भी बहुत पुराना nappe है. That is, entire Western Ghats is extremely rich in the tropical evergreen forest, but at a certain height ऐसी वॉल्केनिक सॉइल है इन द वेस्टर्न घाट्स दैट इन दैट 200 स्क्वायर मीटर का एरिया, ज़्यादा बड़ा एरिया नहीं है, वेरी स्मॉल एरिया, 200 स्क्वायर मीटर का एरिया, नॉट अ सिंगल प्लांट ग्रोज. एंड रेड कलर की सॉइल ऐसे है जैसे फ्लो कर रही है. स्टोरी क्या है? स्टोरी ये है कि परशुराम ने वहाँ पे बाण चलाया एंड इसीलिए वो वेस्टर्न घाट्स पूरा नीचे चला गया एंड वहाँ से आग निकली, बिकॉज उसके बाण में भी कुछ पावर ब्योर होगी एंड ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम आग के कारण वो रेड सॉइल बन गई. बट व्हाट इज दैट? दैट इज एन एग्जांपल ऑफ एन nappe. क्या कैसे आइडेंटिफाई करना है nappe? आफ्टर द ओवर थ्रस्ट फोल्ड द लिम्स आर फर्दर मूव्ड एंड ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम दे आर फाउंड इन 2 डिफरेंट डायरेक्शन. अब ये हिमालयाज है, सो व्हाट वी फाइंड इन द हिमालयाज, ये यहाँ पे नहीं रुकेगा. आफ्टर nappe अगेन दे विल बी फोल्डेड. So we will find maybe a original fold जो है, and then we will find a layer of a different rocks and उसके नीचे there will be a different fold. So what you should remember कि the process of folding will still go on. Nappe is bit complex. अभी तक UPSC ने सिर्फ इतना पूछा है in general studies that are nappes common in Himalayas, yes or no? So answer is yes, nappes are very very common in Himalayas. Why? Because of intensive folding. Can I say in the nappes both the limbs are displaced several kilometers apart? Yes, they are displaced several kilometers apart in a nappe. And displacement क्यों होता है? You already know. Endogenetic forces are carrying and therefore they displace the rocks. Any doubts here? In nappe, because nappe is tough, you will have to imagine this. अभी इतना सिर्फ समझ में आया कि in nappe there is an breaking, जिस पॉइंट पे वो ब्रेक होता है fold, it is known as an over thrust fold, and after breaking if there is a displacement then it is known as nappe. स्ट्रक्चर nappe मतलब क्या? इन सिंपल वर्ड्स कि पूरे एरिया में रेड सॉइल है, बट उतना लोकलाइज्ड एरिया वहाँ पे मे बी ब्लैक सॉइल हो सकती है, या पूरे एरिया में ब्लैक सॉइल है, उस एरिया में द सॉइल का कलर इज डिफरेंट. सो व्हाई द सॉइल का कलर इज डिफरेंट? बिकॉज नीचे का रॉक इज डिफरेंट. नीचे का रॉक क्यों डिफरेंट है? बिकॉज दिस इज एन एग्जाम्पल ऑफ एन nappe. Yes, you have numerous examples of nappe. मतलब हाँ, तो that is an example of a nappe. Sandy soil क्यों है? Because climatic conditions तो same है, सब कुछ है. Now that is because नीचे का structure is different. So nappe का studies are important again. क्यों? For urban planning or for planning purpose, agroclimatic zones के लिए. What is the doubt? Yes, first take the definition of the overthrust fold. when the compressive forces are very strong, when the compressive forces are very strong, when the compressive forces are very strong, the recumbent fold may be broken. The recumbent fold may be broken at the central point. At the central point. And hence both the limb of the fold, both the limbs of the fold may join, forming overthrust fold. Both the limbs of the fold may join, forming overthrust fold. Sixth, nappe. In the cases of Rockies, Andes, Himalayas, in the case of Rockies, Andes, Himalayas, इसमें Alps भी आएगा, but I am not taking that example. Why? Because जब हम Rockies, Andes, Himalayas की बात करते हैं तो automatically और दो mountains आते हैं, they are Atlas and Alps. Rockies, Andes, Himalayas. The compressive forces are very strong. The compressive forces are very strong, comma, still active, and hence after breaking of the limbs, breaking matlab overthrust fold, after breaking of the limbs, both the limbs of the fold are displaced several kilometers apart, Such broken limbs after displacement are known as nappes. This is not required. This was just I was explaining it. Example, nappe commonly मिलेंगे Leh Ladakh region में. Nappe you will find many very common जहाँ we have Shitla Devi temple और we in the Himalayas की बात कर रहा हूँ, या we have कोई भी देवी का temple in the Himalayas. And once you next time you go to any of these tourist places in the Himalayas, you will see the surrounding soil is totally different from the soil जहाँ पे temple है. I told you reason also why India जैसे countries में या कहीं पे भी world में पहले temples होते थे, because the best way to conserve anything is give it a religious angle, then the community will conserve it. So you had an example उसका Nag Panchami. I guess on 15th of August there was an Nag Panchami also. What is that? That is, if you अगर ये celebrate नहीं करते हम ये festival, तो आज तक नाग नहीं बचते. You would have killed each and every snake in the world, thinking that it is poisonous and it is going to eat me. Now you know cobra is dangerous. Even if it bites you, you may die. But आप क्या करते हो? Especially अगर आप भक्त type हो, तो you will आप हाथ जोड़ोगे. That is an example of how we are going to conserve the environment, conserve the culture. And उसकी reason ये है, because if we destroy the snakes, entire agriculture output will be destroyed. Why? Because snakes control the population of rats and pests. So snake has also an importance in ecology. If you destroy the vulture, क्या हुआ? Vultures in India got extinct, on the verge of extinction, and India became the rabies capital of the world. Maximum number of human deaths due to rabies. कहाँ पे vulture and कहाँ पे rabies? Rabies is related to dogs and vulture is a totally different thing. But we will see that later on how this all is related. And इसीलिए the role of the traditional knowledge is also very very important. हर city में है, हर culture में है. Maybe developed nations को ज़रूरत नहीं because they have passed this level that they understand their own. For example, रशिया में एक पेड़ तोड़ो आपको 10 पेड़ कंपलसरी लगाने पड़ते हैं. कनाडा में एक पेड़ तोड़ो आपको 2 पेड़ कंपलसरी लगाने पड़ते हैं. भूटान में child is born in your family, you have to plant a tree. So this is, but we have not gone to that level. So we will cut the trees. So as a result of this, cultural knowledge becomes an important. So similarly, napes have been conserved in the Himalayan geology by having many of the temples over there. Now I was telling you how this forms. So take an example again. सबसे पहले it will result into formation of an monoclinic, the symmetrical fold. ये hypothetical situation है. This is just to make a theory, to make the folds का study easy. In real life, one part, एक plate दूसरे plate से ज़्यादा pressure देगा, so there will be asymmetrical fold. Now if the asymmetrical fold में if one limb is more inclined and the other limb is less inclined, example Eurasian plate, example यहाँ पे is the Indian plate, then this entire Himalayas we will see as the monoclinal fold. But even in the mountains, individual mountains, क्या दिखता है हमें? Suppose अब Indian plate has pushed. Now take an hypothetical situation कि Indian plate अब push नहीं कर रहा, Eurasian plate is pushing. So now both the limbs are steep and they are also parallel to each other. So this becomes isoclinal. Example is Rockies. India, क्योंकि North American ये सब लिखने की ज़रूरत नहीं in GS. So just I am telling you where they are there. So Rockies है, दोनों sides से steep है. Now after becoming steep, suppose now the Indian plate starts becoming active. So how will it, because it is becoming active, it will start bending this landform. Fine, it will be, and this kind of an fold, again ये hypothetical situation है, that is known as an recumbent fold. अब फिर से अगर ज़्यादा push हुआ तो there will be breakage here, and so once it breaks, it is known as an overthrust, and after breaking, the Indian plate थोड़ा नीचे है because it is denser, Eurasian plate थोड़ा ऊपर है. So Eurasian plate will push one part of a plate in some opposite direction, and the Indian plate will put the other part of a plate in some opposite direction, and it will result into formation of an nape. So napes are common in Himalayas. Getting it? What is nape? So that is all about folding, least important from our exam point of view. Just remember that fold mountains are known as mountains of elevation. So you can note it down somewhere. That is the young fold mountains are known as the mountains of elevation. Young fold mountains are known as mountains of elevation. Why mountains of elevation? Because they are the highest mountains on the surface of the earth. Because they are the highest mountains on the surface of the earth. अब मैं आपको थोड़ा, I will only ask you and tell me whether I am right or wrong. Characteristics of अगर fold mountain है, so they are formed due to compressive forces. True or false? True. Right? Second characteristics, folding results into shortening of Earth's crust. Folding Earth's crust, folding results into shortening of Earth's crust. True or false? ये earth crust है, now it is folded, so the earth crust का area has become smaller. So true or false? True. Folding will always result into shortening of the earth's crust, right? In fact, folding नहीं, कोई भी कंप्रेसिव फोर्स विल रिजल्ट इनटू शॉर्टनिंग. सो ये सब हम इंडियन ज्योग्राफी में करेंगे, इसलिए मैं लिखवा नहीं रहा हूँ आपको. सिर्फ यहाँ पे फोल्ड माउंटेन्स के बदले इंडियन ज्योग्राफी में ये वर्ड हो जाएगा हिमालयास. कोई भी फोल्ड माउंटेन्स आर thousands of kilometers in breadth but only 100 kilometers in length. Anywhere in the world the fold mountains are thousands of kilometers in width but only 100 kilometers in length. False. Exactly uske opposite. Shortening of the crust hai, so this crust has become shorter, so they are only 100 kilometers in breadth but 1000 kilometers in length. इंडिया में भी हमने देखा that the Himalayas जो है they are lengthwise they are thousands of kilometers long, right from Namcha Barwa to Nanga Parvat to Namcha Barwa, but they are just 500 kilometers in breadth. यहाँ पे और नॉर्थ ईस्ट में तो we have seen this junction इतना कम है जगह that they are just few kilometers in the breadth. हमने देखा भी है, they are so few kilometers in breadth कि दिल्ली से हिमालयाज नहीं दिखते, but at the same latitude if you go to the eastern part of India, you are directly in the Himalayas. Can I say the next characteristics of fold mountain is they are very active in seismic activities such as earthquakes and volcanoes. Yes, in general, yes. चाहे वो हिमालयाज के लिए it is not true, but earthquake is true, volcanoes is not true, so they are very, very active in the seismic activities such as earthquakes and volcanoes. Fine with this? Now we come to the other portion which is very important from our exam point of view, both prelims and mains, and that is faulting. Fault का दूसरा नाम is fracture, and with this it is now very easy for you to understand. क्या है faulting? Faulting is the breaking of the earth's crust. Faulting is the breaking of the earth's crust. Now don't write anything, just see here. I'll again take this book as an example. अगर मैंने ये book दोनों side से खींचा, so where is the greater chances कि ये टूटेगा? In the central part. Why is it so? Why it will break if I pull it more? Because this is the weakest part. Why it is the weakest part? Because it is having joint. It is not compact. Because it is joint. So similarly, rocks when subjected to tensional force, tensional means pulling apart, when they break along the zones of weakness, the lines of weakness, and after breaking they get displaced from their original position, it is known as faulting. So faulting is caused due to tensional force. Folding is generally caused due to the compressional force. Tension हमेशा opposite direction में. See, you use this even in your daily life. आप कहते हो tension के मारे सर फट रहा है. You never say compression के मारे सर फट रहा है. You say tension के मारे सर फट रहा है because it means pulling apart. So tension means pulling apart in the opposite direction. When the forces are pulling apart, so कहाँ पे हो रहा है? Divergent plate boundary, transform plate boundary. So when the forces pull apart in the opposite direction, and if the rock undergoes breaking, it is known as fracture or fault. क्या फर्क है fracture and fault में? Fracture में सिर्फ crack आता है. In the fault, after crack, there is displacement. There is a movement, and because of the movement, हम देखेंगे some of the landforms will be known as block mountains, while some are known as rift valleys. So take down the faults. faulting is generally caused, underline the word generally. Faulting is generally caused due to tensional force. Due to tensional force. Due to the tensional force. Generally, tensional means most of the times it is tensional, sometimes it can be due to compressional forces also. Faulting represents a crack in the rocks along the lines or the zones of weakness. Along the lines or zones of weakness. Example is joints in the rocks along the lines or the zones of weakness. After breaking, the rocks or the landforms, क्योंकि हम अभी ये बड़े स्केल पे we will apply, the landforms will undergo displacement to give rise to horst, or in simple words, block mountains, and graben. It is an rift valley. ये words German words है, Horst and Graben, because they were first studied in Germany, and we have studied this rivers. जहाँ पे they have first studied. At least हमें पता है वो river, and that river is river Rhine. जो हमने देखा था, it ends at Rotterdam. Rotterdam से then you go to Germany, and सारा industrial centers are located on the river Rhine. Now see, from here geography starts becoming new. So पिछले लेक्चर्स की इतनी ज़्यादा ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ेगी फ्रॉम द फॉल्ट्स, थोड़ा बहुत फॉल्ट्स में पड़ेगी, बट यू कैन स्टिल अंडरस्टैंड और रिलेट टू इट. नाउ कॉमनली आस्क्ड क्वेश्चन है इंडियन ज्योग्राफी एंड वर्ल्ड ज्योग्राफी में, व्हाट इज होर्स्ट एंड व्हाट इज एन ग्रेबन एक्सेट्रा. फर्स्ट फॉर दैट वी विल डू द टाइप्स ऑफ द फॉल्ट्स. Normal fault. Normal fault is caused due to tensional force. Normal fault is caused due to tensional force. Pulling apart of the rocks. Pulling apart of the rocks. Leave as it is and look here. Because I am pulling, there will be some point जहाँ से a crack will be developed, right? For ease of diagram, I am making it very simple. Suppose ये ऐसा crack develop हुआ है because this is the zone of weakness. और इसके बाद अगर फिर से pull किया, so what will happen is the landform will become stretched. And अगर नीचे clay है, if नीचे there is a water etc, after crack ये जो landform था it will go down. So the original landform which was flat will become somewhat like this. So this is our original landform, shading wala part. But uska central part has now gone down. Getting it? क्या हुआ है? We have pulled the landform, then there has been formation of a crack. इसके लिए numerous conditions are required. वो सब GS में ज़रूरत नहीं है. For example, in crack में there is some water acts as a lubricating agent. Because water acts as a lubricating agent, the rocks get displaced, and after the rocks get displaced, if the central part goes down, or the central part may go up, but I am showing that central part will go down, and as a result of this, ये जो central part which has gone down, now if you are standing here and looking down, you will feel that it is a valley. So we will call this valley as an rift valley. But if you are standing in this valley and looking up, you will find that you will think that this is a mountain. So you will call this as a block mountain. This is also an example of a block mountain. So अभी तक we have seen the mountains will always be anticline and syncline. अभी school days से याद करो, अगर आपको किसी ने mountain बनाने बोला तो you used to make this way. Why? Because anticline and syncline, fold mountain is our idea of a mountain. So you used to make anticline, syncline. कभी आपने ऐसे mountains नहीं बनाए. Why? Because block mountains is not our idea, but there are some of the mountains which are having very flat top, and they are block mountains. Example, Vindhya, Narmada, Satpura. So Narmada is an example of an rift valley. So north में मध्य प्रदेश से देखोगे तो विंध्यास ज़्यादा mountainous नहीं लगेंगे southern side से, but if you look from the UP का border, Vindhyas will look like a very tall mountains. Why? Because they are nothing but a part of a plateau. It originates in the Rift Valley. Why any river can originate? There can be numerous reasons. But understand, a simple thing, though it is not associated with Narmada. Up this is an ground, and niche there can be a groundwater. Recently what we have discovered? Recently we have discovered that there is a subterranean ocean. Subterranean ocean matlab below the rocks itna bada ocean hai that it can satisfy the water needs of every humanity. That is niche groundwater hai. Rajasthan may be, if you dig a well, you will find water below. There is a groundwater which is present. Now suppose if this rock goes below, can I say the water which was present below, it will be coming up? And this can, agar ye flow ho raha hai, so it will be a river. If it is not flowing, it will be an example of a lake. So there will be always such kind of an water bodies. But Rift Valley ke lakes, can I say they will be more or less elongated? खींचे हुए, उनका shape will not be straight, उनका shape will not be round. Why? Because a big landform is there, and hence Rift Valley के lakes जितने भी है, they will be more or less elongated in nature. This is how we identify Rift Valley का lakes. Why elongated in nature? ये पूरा landform has been shifted and therefore water has come up. कभी भी lake का shape ऐसे नहीं होगा, या it won't be an example of we have done this lake, Lake Superior type lake. It will be a elongated lake. And this will be very deep lakes. So which is the deepest lake in the world? Baikal. Lake Baikal is an example of an Rift Valley lake. Tectonic matlab koi bhi endogenetic force se bana. So it is an example of an Rift Valley ka lake. Don't write it. First take what is a normal fault. So I guess we have written pulling apart of the rocks. Full stop. The displacement of the rocks, the displacement of the rocks, the displacement of the rocks will give rise to, the displacement of the rocks will give rise to horst and a graben. Horst and a graben. Horst matlab block mountain. Horst and graben. It is written there. ये words याद रखने पड़ेंगे. Horst and graben. Horst matlab block mountain. So can I say block mountain can come in the exam as tabletop mountain? Remember, it is also an tabletop mountain. More or less it is a flat mountain. Because बाकी के mountains are anticline and syncline. ये है flat. More or less it is flat. Next point. Normal fault. Normal fault. As it is caused by tensional forces, as it is caused by tensional forces, will result into elongation of Earth's crust. Will result into elongation of Earth's crust. Will result into elongation of Earth's crust. Fine with this? फ्रैक्चर के बिना डिस्प्लेसमेंट कैसे होगा? होता है, ये एक टाइप है अलग. विल कम टू दैट टाइप. एक ही टाइप का फ्रैक्चर, विल सी व्हाट इज दैट. Reverse fault. Why reverse fault? See, this is again our imaginary landform. But now the forces that are acting are, which is this force? Tensional or compressional? This is an compressional force. And because of the compressional force, again there may be a fracture. See, ये diagrams बनाने हैं, जरूरी नहीं world में ऐसे होगा, but this is how a standardization is there for the diagrams. Otherwise, अगर standardization नहीं तो आप कुछ भी बना दोगे exam में, इसको भी fault कह सकते हो. So you have to show it by the standard diagrams, the proper accepted diagrams. So now, but because it is pushing, maybe the central part will go up. And there will be what? Shortening of the Earth's crust. The outcome is same. What is the outcome? Block mountain and rift valley. Block mountain and rift valley. The only difference is this is caused due to, reverse fault is due to compression and normal fault is due to tension. Faulting पे क्वेश्चन आया तो make these diagrams and see. ज्योग्राफी का पेपर चाहे वो जीएस में है, इट विल बी चेक्ड बाय ज्योग्राफी का टीचर, सोशल इश्यूज बाय सोशल इश्यूज का टीचर, हिस्ट्री का पार्ट विल बी चेक्ड बाय हिस्ट्री का टीचर, इवन इन जनरल स्टडीज. सो एंड दे आर जनरली सीनियर टीचर्स. So कभी कभी तो most of the time GS में they don't mind it, but suppose आपका bad luck is very bad, so and in that case ऐसा पेपर ऐसे टीचर के पास गया who is very particular about diagrams on some specific diagrams, तो they may not like कि आप diagrams नहीं proper बना रहे. What is the proper thing in this diagram? We have shown there is elongation. यहाँ पे we have shown that is shortening of the earth's crust. So be very careful when you make the diagrams. So take down reverse faults. The reverse fault is formed due to compressive forces. Is formed due to compressive forces. Is formed due to compressive forces. It results into crustal shortening. It results into crustal shortening. Into crustal shortening or the shortening of the earth's crust. Vindhyas and Satpuras are an example of reverse fault. Are an example of reverse fault. Are an example of reverse fault. क्यों? You just imagine. Tensional force है या compressional force है? Indian plate is colliding with the Eurasian plate. And compressional force है. And compressional force से Indian plate fold नहीं हुआ क्योंकि वो rock से बना है, वो टूट गया, fracture आया, and therefore we have reverse fault here. Similarly, someone was asking me Indo-Sangpo suture zone. Who was asking? Absent है. So ब्रह्मपुत्रा में भी ऐसा एक फॉल्ट है, बट यू शुड नॉट रिमेंबर दैट बिकॉज दैट फॉल्ट डज नॉट लाई इन इंडिया, दैट फॉल्ट लाइज इन चाइना. सो कल अगर क्वेश्चन आता है इंडिया में फॉल्ट क्या है, जितना मैं लिखाऊंगा उतना ही करना. 4 ही रिवर्स हम याद रखेंगे, दे आर फ्लोइंग थ्रू अ फॉल्ट इन इंडिया. कैन ह्यूमन बींग्स मेक फॉल्ट, आर्टिफिशियल फॉल्ट्स? Yes. By constructing big dams, by blasting nuclear bombs, we make faults. Example is Bhima fault. आपके NCERT में दिया है Bhima fault. Bhima fault has been made by the human beings. इसलिए वहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा earthquakes है. Example is Latur earthquake. There is an example of an Bhima fault वाला system. So we also can make faults. In fact, USA में regularly fault बनाए जाते हैं in the San Andreas region and उसके अंदर oil डाला जाता है. Why? So that the plate keeps on moving and छोटे छोटे earthquake आते रहे. Otherwise, if they do not do that, San Andreas is such a powerful fault system that if USA does not conduct artificial earthquakes, a single earthquake will be so large that it will destroy entire California. So USA and Japan में the science has gone to such a level that they create earthquakes so that choti choti amount of energy is being released rather than energy being conserved inside and suddenly being released. Japan mein it has gone to such an high level that buildings are made up of ball bearings. That is, earthquake comes very strong but uske foundation mein ball bearing hai, isliye building hilti hai पर it does not fall down. So that is how Japan can survive such an powerful earthquakes, because Japan में हर 3 मिनट बाद 6 के मैग्नीट्यूड से ज़्यादा earthquake आना है. So उस दिन we were discussing सिर्फ P waves आया थे and उस दिन आप डर गए थे. So this is very common in Japan. And वो भी इससे ज़्यादा surface waves भी आते हैं. So they don't worry because they think they are on the boat, the building sways, and we are also bringing in this technology. कहाँ पे? In Bhuj or even in Delhi, because Delhi is highly prone to seismic zone. सो कहाँ पे, नॉट इन द ओल्डर पार्ट, बिकॉज यहाँ पे कंस्ट्रक्शन इज नॉट दैट ईजी, ये सब तोड़ के, सो यू गो एंड सी आउटसाइड नोएडा, द्वारका, द टावर्स विच आर कमिंग अप, दे आर अर्थ मोर और लेस, आई डोंट नो अभी कितना उसको फॉलो किया जाता है, बट ऑन पेपर दे आर अर्थक्वेक रेजिस्टेंट बिल्डिंग्स. सो ऑन द पेपर एटलीस्ट दे आर. उनके नीचे बॉल बेयरिंग टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं, बिकॉज दैट इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड इंडिया में, बट दे आर एन अर्थक्वेक रेजिस्टेंट बिल्डिंग्स. In the concrete blocks, yes. In India, we are using expansion joints. Now, the third kind of an fault is a very interesting fault, is what is known as an step fault. An imaginary landform, just like our normal landform here, but due to increase in the vertical pressure, अभी तक तो हमने देखा forces were acting horizontally. Due to increase in the vertical pressure, it can be magma, or it can be such an collision that the joints, cracks occur vertically. So this is how the cracks will occur in the rocks. And then maybe some external agent, पानी भी जा सकता है या magma भी हो सकता है, lava का layer upon layer is built up and it pushes the rock below. So in such cases, this entire rock will break, or it will get displaced only in one direction to form a series of steps, and we will call this as an example of an step fault. So what happens in this fault is the displacement will occur only in one direction. The displacement will occur only in one direction to give rise to the series of steps. Before I dictate, can you tell me where it is in India? In India, it is, so see, this is Arabian Sea, this is Mumbai, this is Lonavala Khandala, this is Pune, this is Aurangabad, this is Nagpur, and this is Telangana. Or this is Mangalore. Instead of Pune, this is Bangalore. Then the interiors of Karnataka, that is the once you cross the Shivasamudram falls, and then comes Tamil Nadu. So river Kaveri हम देखेंगे, it makes, अब महाराष्ट्र में इतनी rivers नहीं है, but river Kaveri goes properly through it and makes series of waterfalls. So कुछ जगह Shivasamudram falls, कुछ जगह Hogenkal falls. So this is what is seen in the Western Ghats, and in the Swedish language, steps का मतलब है traps, and इसीलिए इस region को कहा जाता है Deccan traps. उसके बाद, after you end through the Deccan traps, because you are doing history, once you come to this region, उसके बाद either गोदावरी और कृष्णा के बीच का डेल्टा है नॉर्दर्न सरकार्स, या कृष्णा और कावेरी के बीच का डेल्टा है सदर्न सरकार्स. आपने हिस्ट्री में पढ़ा होगा, that is the northern सरकार्स and the southern सरकार्स. So this is an area. Now why it is known as Deccan traps? Traps का मतलब है staircase in Swedish language. And see, geography, physical geography as a subject either originated in Germany, Sweden, या in USA. So इसलिए we have the English words which we generally use, and or other, and the German words. So इसीलिए Deccan traps, and you know why, because continuous lava flow, so इतना ज़्यादा pressure बढ़ गया that this entire part went down. So इसीलिए जब आप ईस्टर्न साइड से देखते हो तो you will see this as a staircase. और जब आप वेस्टर्न साइड से देखते हो तो यू कॉल दिस एज अ माउंटेन. एंड जो जिस फीचर, जिस रीजन का फीचर इज स्टेयरकेस ऑन वन साइड एंड द माउंटेन्स ऑन द अदर साइड, इट इज नोन एज घाट्स. एंड देयरफॉर इट इज वेस्टर्न घाट, बिकॉज द वर्ड कम्स फ्रॉम द बेदिंग घाट. उसमें भी यू हैव एन staircase. So western ghats, you have an staircase. Now understand one thing related to climatology. बारिश अगर चाहिए तो air should rise up. So air comes from the Arabian Sea and it is forced to rise up because of western ghats, giving very very heavy rainfall. And as a result of this, western coast, चाहे वो केरला हो, चाहे it is Mumbai, gets very heavy rainfall. The highest point of western ghats is in Kerala, and you can see what is happening in the Kerala when the winds become stronger. But once the winds cross western ghats, they are forced to come down, and when the winds are forced to come down, it will not give rainfall. So as you move away from the western ghats, the amount of rainfall goes on decreasing, and as a result of this, this region is a drought prone region of India. डिफरेंस है सिर्फ 200 किलोमीटर का मैक्सिमम, बट यहाँ पे मोर देन 400 सेंटीमीटर्स ऑफ एवरेज एनुअल रेनफॉल एंड यहाँ पे ओनली 50 सेंटीमीटर्स ऑफ एवरेज एनुअल रेनफॉल. दैट इज बिकॉज ऑफ द वेस्टर्न घाट. अप्लाई दिस टू द रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ द स्टेट्स. Because of the frequent droughts, there is a demand for separate state. One demand has been fulfilled, Telangana. The other demand is there, that is Vidarbha region. Why? Because this is a drought prone region. Chahe it is Marathwada region, chahe it is an Vidarbha region, or to some extent the northern Karnataka wala region. So understanding how a single this thing has changed the geology, climate and the entire of this region. अगर ये नहीं होता, अगर had this not been a fault, so the winds would have went directly and given rainfall to each and every region. So abhi recently Karnataka and Maharashtra government are planning, though it will not be successful because technical feasibility chal rahi hai iski, though we don't know whether they will do it or not. They are planning to construct windows in the Western Ghats. Why? Because allow the winds to pass, and thus interlinking से कम खर्चा आएगा इसमें. There is a bigger project what is known as an interlinking of the river, but उससे सस्ता है, that is the constructing a structural windows in the Western Ghats, so that this will pass, because Western Ghats are continuous mountains. और क्यों continuous mountains है? You can see because it is not a mountain, but it is a plateau which has submerged below, and यहाँ से this is an part here. So this is what is the Deccan Trap. So we have इसका best example in India only. So इसलिए इसका नाम है Deccan Traps, but only on the eastern side, not on the western side.
But what are the side effects of making those windows? Why?
Structural instability. Structural instability and political instability. That is, this coastline is somewhere around longer. So मेरे जिले में क्यों नहीं बनाया विंडो, इसी जिले में क्यों बनाया, इस तालुका में क्यों बनाया? That is, it will create lot of political problems. Structural इतना नहीं. So why only that XYZ district was chosen? Why not that district was chosen? और अगर सब district choose करते गए, the Western Ghats will only come down. So it has to be at a proper point, but people will not understand this. And instability, landslides, too much of landslides. A very heavy rainfall causes the death of so many people in Kerala, and still the loss is there. So if you make structural windows, it will result into large scale landslide. ये British time से this thing was there. So, जो Britishers ने नहीं किया means you should understand कि we do not have the structural competence, because interlinking ये हमारी idea नहीं है. This is nothing but 1886 की idea by Britishers. They studied this and they skipped this part. उसको तब उन्होंने नाम दिया था ग्रैंड कनाल प्रोजेक्ट. उसके बाद इंदिरा गांधी gave it a name of interlinking. Then Vajpayee government said that yes, interlinking should be done. So this is how it is, and but we do not have that much technical. Technical se zyada, we do not have money, understand? Because interlinking will require the amount of money which is 5% of the entire GDP of country, and which is 50 times greater than, minimum 50 times greater than entire tax collection of a country. So it is huge project, and अभी तक it has not been successful. इंडिया ने, मैंने वही एग्जांपल दिया आपको, हमने एक ही डैम बनाया है हिमालयाज में, कोसी, 2 साल बाद कोसी ने उसका डायरेक्शन चेंज कर लिया, डैम वहाँ है. सो व्हाट इफ वी मेक दिस एंटायर इंटरलिंकिंग, और रिवर्स ने अपना डायरेक्शन चेंज कर दिया. सो दिस 25 लाख करोड़ रुपीस will go in waste, and ये 25 lakh crore rupees is the cost of only Himalayan rivers. पेनिनसुलर रिवर्स का अभी तक हमने कॉस्ट नहीं निकाला है, और ये कॉस्ट निकाला था 1986 में. दिस इज 2018. सो इंटरलिंकिंग ऑफ द रिवर्स का जस्ट वन एग्जांपल आई हैव गिवन यू, व्हाई इट विल नॉट बी दैट मच फिजिबल. सो स्टेप फॉल्ट, if the displacement of the rocks occur vertically in the same direction, it will give rise to step fault. It will give rise to step fault. Step fault. Example, eastern side of Western Ghats. Example is the eastern side of Western Ghats. Getting it? Why eastern side of Western Ghats? Same point. Therefore they are known as Deccan traps. Therefore they are known as Deccan traps. Because traps in the Swedish language, means staircase. Traps in the Swedish language means staircase. Traps in the Swedish language means staircase. Fine with this? So which is the longest fault system in the world? Longest fault system in the world. The longest fault system in the world is, look here. It starts from Syria, then Dead Sea. Dead Sea से it goes through Red Sea, इसलिए the shape of Red Sea is this. Then it comes here. यहाँ पे there are numerous lakes, but if you want to remember, you can remember Lake Albert. वैसे there is Lake Tukarna here, Lake Edward. ये भी चॉइस है आपकी, याद रखना है तो रखो. But Lake Tanganyika, no, and Lake Nyasa. Or this is also known as Lake Malawi.
So this is the longest rift valley in the world. Tanganyika is the longest lake of Africa. And second deepest lake in the world. Is the second deepest lake in the world. So इसलिए रेड सी का शेप ऐसा है. And I have told you the mythological story, Exodus of gods and demons. That is, Moses asked the sea to open up, sea opened up, he passed, and then again sea closed. Geography shows that this is an example of an rift valley. Now, why? Because Africa is breaking in this direction. Secondly, सारे जगह से पानी ऊपर आया, बट बिकॉज ये डेजर्ट है, यहाँ पे इवेपोरेशन इतना ज़्यादा हो गया कि वी कॉल दिस सी एज एन डेड सी. टेस्ट. So we call this sea as a dead sea. Why dead sea? Because see, water is there, groundwater is there, but because the groundwater is so in this desert region, this is entirely is a desert. Sahara desert hai, then there is in West Asia. In this region, the groundwater is such that it causes large scale, that is what, यहाँ पे climate is such that it causes large scale evaporation. And as a result of this, we find here कि salt रह जाता है, water is evaporated. So high is the salinity that nothing can survive in this region, and hence we can say it is a dead sea. So this are and Rift Valley lakes. Don't forget Tanganyika and Nyasa, because this part will be same after some years like Madagascar. Madagascar has already broken. Lake Victoria, someone said, go home and look at the photo of Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is rounded in shape. So याद रखना, Lake Victoria is not a Rift Valley lake. Okay, so I'll stop here, and you have 1 hour for solving the test.